I love to try to understand the process of doing this. This was a 2.5-year project? In a way, it was a lifelong project.
It's a lifelong project, 2.5 years, 3 years in the writing, yeah.
And the first 20, 30 pages, you wrote on an airplane.
I wrote, yeah, exactly almost verbatim as you see them. When you open my novel and read the first 20 pages, I wrote those flying from Vancouver to Toronto one time on an Air Canada flight. Long flight, I had the decision, do I just zone out, veg out and watch a movie or sleep, or do I, and I was like, no, something's calling me. And it was the beginning of this novel. And I said to myself, what's the most exciting way I could possibly start a novel? I said, a car chase. Oh, but there are no cars in the 1600s. What do I do next? Snowshoe chase. And I throw the three characters together. And
this is all sitting there with
sitting in a plane.
With your bag of peanuts waiting.
Part of it was I had a person on either side. It was one of those 3 rows, the 3-seat rows, and your worst position, right? You're in the middle. It's like, I'm stuck. What can I do? I can just sit here and fume and watch a movie, or I can open my mind up to something that I want to create.
So you're sitting there with a laptop or with pen,
I actually had my iPad and a little keyboard. So I was writing with an iPad and a little a tiny little keyboard on the iPad.
So you get on the plane, you didn't know you were going to do this. You get off the plane and you've got to start.
And I'm like, oh, this is exciting. Yeah, this is good. This is a good start because it's without knowing it, I threw these 3 characters together: the Jesuit, the Wendat chieftain and elder, and the young Haudenosaunee girl. They are thrown together in a very violent way. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, the elephant in the room is already dealt with. There was violence during this time between the peoples. There was violence between the Europeans and the indigenous people. There was violence intertribally. So I was like, well, I got the violence done. Now let's see where they go from here. They've got to spend their lives together now. These 3 very different people. What do I do with them now? And that was a wonderful kind of exciting start for me. Every time, and with my characters, what's so funny is they're like little babies at first. I have to feed them and tell them, you got to do this in this bird, or snowfalls, you might want to do this. But very quickly, if they're real characters in the novel, they start telling me what they're going to do. And they start doing things that get them in trouble. I'm like, how are you going to get out of this now, Snowfalls? Why did you just pee on Bird's blanket? Now, he's going to be very upset with you. How do you get out of this now? And they always found their way in this novel. It kind of just played itself out in this amazing way to me.
Getting to start must be the challenge to any novel.
Yeah, it's very frightening.
The old movies used to show, somebody sitting at a typewriter and then throwing a piece of paper away, trying again, throwing a piece of paper away. Is it like that?
It's frightening for me, and I would imagine any novelist I would ask, whether it was Michael Winter or Margaret Atwood or Michael Ondaatje, it would be, how scary is it to start your novel? Because you know nothing again. Despite all of what's come before, when you got that blank screen or that blank page in front of you, oh my Lord, it's can I do this? Can I live up to? And you have to push all of that away, obviously, all of the outside voices and noises, and allow the inner voice to obviously blossom. It's a frightening thing starting, and I'm doing it right now, and it's not easy.
But you did this one sitting on a plane in the rarefied air with people
I
around.
think it was the overly oxygenated area.
Yeah. But with people around you. Now, do you like to be alone? Do you like to,
my wife Amanda will laugh at me because I'm being from a large family surrounded by noise all the time. So I often write in New Orleans in a coffee shop that is just buzzing with people. And first thing in the morning I go and people are just coming and going, and I love that time to write. So I love to write in noise.
They would freak if they knew you were sitting there writing about Northern Ontario.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't understand. They'd be like, what? Whatever, But yeah, no, I don't mind the busyness of life around me while I write. I kind of dig it. I like it. I like the vibrations of other humans, But I can also write, late at night. With this novel, when I wrote near the end, I was in a feverish kind of obsessive thing where I wrote the last 100 pages of this novel over the course of probably 2 weeks. And again, almost verbatim as you see them now. And I didn't know. At this point I was on a river, and the river was coming to it was in the rapids. And I was just flying through this very painful stuff, with what happens to the Jesuit Christophe and what happens to the Wendat people. It was not easy writing, and I didn't know how I was going to do it, but it was like this feverish thing at the end. So I compare this writing the Orenda to a big slow, and I hope the read isn't a big slow river at first. But as I wrote it, it was this meandering river that just picked up pace until I was in the rapids, and I was just shooting through, going, I hope I don't hit a rock, kind of thing. Yeah.
What does it feel like when you realize you've hit the last key?
That last sentence of the novel, I wrote it again, verbatim. The past and the future are present, and I was like, oh my God, that is it. And I hit the period button and looked to my wife Amanda. We were right across the table from each other. She's a novelist as well, and I looked at her and said, I think I did it. And she looked at me and smiled, and she had been reading. As we go, we read each other's work, and she's like, yeah, I can't wait. I think my gut tells me this is important for you. And yeah, it was thrilling. Long journey, but thrilling, yeah.
Is it a relief? Is it a feeling of relief you get at that point, or is it now the real waiting kind of starts?
It was certainly relief. I knew in my gut, in my heart, that I'd done some justice anyways to this period, and there's more to come. And that lasts all of about a couple of days. I'm like, oh no, what do I write next? It was relief knowing this book especially. My first two novels took a very different route when I wrote them. I wrote a draft that took me years and realized it was completely wrong structure for the novel and completely restructured it. This is the first time I've written a novel where really it came out in the way that you see it now. I didn't have to restructure anything. All I did was like move around a few scenes and cut out really bad language and do all the things a writer does in editing. But this was the first time where I wrote a book where it came out in a way that it just had to. And a classic 3-act structure, the prologues with each act all came out in the way that you see them now, and it was amazing experience for me.
But it's also, the pressure must be. The pressure's on. For that. It's not like this was your first one. It wasn't, and they've all been well reviewed. But this has been like work of your life.
The pressure is always on. With 3-Day Road, people said, "Oh, great book. How are you going to top that?" I read through Black Spruce and it wins a Giller, fantastic. And then I read through Orenda, like, "Oh, you topped both of them." I'm writing a young adult novel now that I'm super excited about because I have so many nephews and nieces that I just want to reach out to and show them something, or like commune with them in my own way. And so exciting, to create something. It's very frightening, but at the same time, I keep, it's not the outside noise I hear. It's what do my nephews and nieces, what can I show them that will help them on their journey, and that, what more do you need, than other than to have a chance to do that for your family.
When you say a young adult novel, is that like for all young adults? Is it like, what can you tell us?
Absolutely. Well, the first novel I ever read was The Outsiders. I was in grade 6. My older sister Julie had brought it back. She was in grade 9, I think, at that point, and I kind of stole it from her because she wasn't reading it. And in a feverish kind of 2 days, I read this book, and I was like, this is amazing. This is what I want to do. I want to tell stories like this. And I want to treat this young adult novel like that too, that an adult can read it, and that a youth can read it, that family, hopefully a parent can share with a child. And I'm talking, teens, 12, 11, 13 on kind of thing. Right?
Is it a modern day? Or
it's modern, it's contemporary, yeah. It's a young contemporary Aboriginal boy living in the big city who's being kind of wooed into the gang life, the Indian posse kind of life. And for escape, he goes to the railroad tracks near his home. And one day, this kid wearing old-fashioned clothing comes up and tells the contemporary kid, I just ran away from residential school. And that's how the novel starts. It's like, wait a second, how is this? What's going on here? And it's called Seven. I even know the title, 7 Matches. The 7 fires, and it's exciting to me. It's great.
Did you have to get on a plane to write that book?
I'm gonna get on a plane after this interview. Guess what I'm gonna be doing? Yeah.
Listen, this has been a treat. Thanks so much.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Peter.